I communicated with this energy that I really wanted to continue living, and that if I was able to continue living, I would drastically change my life. I would stop doing hard drugs and really start working to get myself mentally and emotionally healthy. And I was shown my funeral. It was like I was above it, and I saw all these people there, and not only did I see it, but I could feel everyone and what they were feeling, and I could feel their love for me. And I was really quite shocked that people actually cared about me that much. That's how delusional I was about people not caring, So I hope that anyone that hears this, maybe that's having a hard time, can kind of relate to that, because when we're in the dumps, when we're depressed, we really come up with our own narrative about what other people think and feel, and most of the time we're wrong about that.
Life is but a dream. Life is but a dream. Life is but a dream. Yeah. Hello, you beautiful souls. Welcome to the Praise the Sun podcast, where I'm honored to have on my guest, Angel. Angel, how are you doing?
Excellent.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to be here on the show. And I'm looking forward to talking to you and hearing your story and getting to share your story with my audience. So for people who are not familiar with you and your story and the things you've been through, could you tell us about that? Could you tell us about your NDE and like your life kind of before the NDE and then after the NDE happened?
Sure.
Awesome, thank you.
So I'll start with trying to center this here. I'll start with my life before the NDE. Just give a kind of a brief synopsis of that. When I was born in Nebraska, and my parents divorced at age 5, and my mother moved in with a man who was quite abusive, and that started an issue of mental and emotional illness with me at a young age. And when I hit my teenage years especially, I was having lots of trouble mentally and emotionally, and got into drugs. And so when I was 19 years old, I was at a rave and had done some meth, took a pill of ecstasy, and then ended up taking a pill of PCP, a great big pill of PCP, and had an overdose experience. That was my near-death experience. So that happened at age 19. And in this near-death experience, because of just my issues before this experience, I didn't really think that anyone loved me that much, and I didn't really see my life as that valuable. And when it was leaving, when I felt that I was dying, I realized that my life was valuable. And for the first time, I really, really didn't want to die. I really had spent a lot of time wanting to die. I thought about dying all the time. So my near-death experience really woke me up to the fact that I didn't actually want to die. I actually wanted to have a meaningful life. And it was in that experience that I really realized that I was not appreciating my life, not appreciating the people in it. And perspective is an amazing thing, because, one experience where I'm almost dead, and all of a sudden I don't think the same anymore. So that experience lasted about at least 5 hours, if not longer. I don't really remember exactly how long it lasted because I started overdosing after the rave was over and I was back at a hotel room, and I started having a really interesting experience in this overdose where I don't know exactly if I passed out or I don't know how it went, but I ended up in some other dimension where I was having a conversation with this giant energy. I called it God. And it didn't have any particular form. I've called it a tsunami of energy ever since it happened because that's what it was like. It was like kind of like if you imagine standing on the beach and having a tsunami right in front of you, just the awe and terror of what that would be like. That was that was what this energy was like. And it was highly intelligent energy. It was very corrective. I felt like it could just see, and I felt like it saw and knew everything about me. And I started having a telepathic conversation with it. And so I said to it, I don't want to die. And then I called it God, and it said back to me a better name is Geschichte, which is, I didn't know that at the time, but it means history in German, and I probably am saying it wrong, but that's, I heard the word and didn't know what the word was until later on I had a conversation with my father, and he was like, what was the word? And he told me what the word meant. So anyone who's had these kind of experiences or that's deeply spiritual in contact with this great energy knows that it's we're the ones who are really attached to names, and the energy that we call God and all of that isn't really that attached to labels and names. So giving me the name of history is kind of humorous. So in this conversation back and forth, it's hard to explain because it doesn't happen like the way that we all speak to each other. It's a lot different. It's like receiving information and comprehension and feeling states and correction all at the same time. It's very intense. It was extremely intense. It was also very scary. And I was being corrected. It was very intense correction energy of, you've been taking your life for granted. Your life is your greatest gift. And what do you have to say about that, basically? What are your thoughts on that now that you're having this experience? And of course my thoughts were like, I felt really stupid. I felt like a spoiled little brat that had been given the most beautiful gift ever, and I'd just been complaining and crapping all over it, really focusing on the negative aspects of my life. Which is why I opened with the negative aspects of my life, because that's what led to using the drugs and having the drug overdose. I now can look back at my life and see all of the good and the positive and the beautiful things about it. There was abuse, but there was a lot more than that too. There was connection and a lot of love in my life. But that's the thing with the traumas that happen to us. We have a tendency to really focus on those things, and then we become just kind of possessed by them and can't really see out of it. And that's what really led me into the drug overdose experience. So I communicated with this energy that I really wanted to continue living, and that if I was able to continue living, I would drastically change my life. I would stop doing hard drugs and really start working to get myself mentally and emotionally healthy. And I was shown my funeral. It was like I was above it, and I saw all these people there, and not only did I see it, but I could feel everyone and what they were feeling, and I could feel their love for me. And I was really quite shocked that people actually cared about me that much. That's how delusional I was about people not caring, So I hope that anyone that hears this, maybe that's having a hard time, can kind of relate to that, because when we're in the dumps, when we're depressed, we really come up with our own narrative about what other people think and feel, and most of the time we're wrong about that. So at some point I passed out, and before I passed out, I did say, whatever is asked of me, if I'm allowed to live, whatever is asked of me, I will do. So I then passed out at some point and woke back up when my friends returned from the after party. And I wasn't dead, so I was very happy about that. And I was already just very different. Life felt different. Everything looked different. It was a very dramatic shift in perception. And I did stop doing hard drugs, and I did start focusing on my emotional health and my mental health, my spiritual health. I started studying the philosophy of Gandhi. I started practicing yoga. I lived by myself at the time, so I came off of the drugs by myself, and that was rough. But I really did want to do my best to live a meaningful life. And it's not like it was right away, like I just transformed into this totally healthy person and everything was fine and dandy right after that. It wasn't. It was quite a long road, actually, of really working to become healthier and healthier. And I ended up finding a teacher that I studied with from the time I was 23 until I was 34. And at the same time that I was studying with her, she was a psychologist, a doctor of psychology, and she had also created her own therapy. And she was also a Native American shaman. She also had a death experience herself when she was in her 20s, and then had a walk-in experience. So she was very unique. And as soon as I met her, I knew that she was who I needed to study with. And then at the same time that I was studying with her, I was also just continuing to go through my own transformations of things. Ever since the near-death experience, I had this ability to converse telepathically with this energy that saved my life that morning. And strange things were happening to me right after the near-death experience, which that happened when I was 19. So right after that happened, I was managing a frame shop, framing artwork. And every day I would get so tired that I would nearly just pass out standing up. So I'd get up on the framing table and just lie down and just go out. And it was very strange because I would go out and I couldn't move my body and I couldn't open my eyes. It was like I could hear all kinds of stuff going on around me. And yet, to my knowledge, no one ever did come in the store. We did a lot of bulk orders and stuff. We didn't have a lot of customers, thankfully. So I I believe that what was happening was some kind of interdimensional work that was going on with me, but that occurred every single day for a good year. And it was very disorienting while it was happening. And I didn't understand a lot of things that were happening to me during that time. The what I was picking up from people when I would have conversations with people, when someone was incongruent, I was starting to be able to feel that, and often it felt just really offensive to my nervous system, and I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand why I was feeling that. Now I know exactly when it's happening. It's like, oh, I know what's happening right now. Someone's basically lying, whether they know it or not. That's what's occurring. And I started being able to see spirits, people that had passed on, and be able to communicate with them in that telepathic kind of way that I was able to communicate with Geschichte. And really so many sensitivities that it was quite overwhelming. And thankfully I did have my teacher at that time who was just helping me through that. And then at age 34, I got really, really sick. I had been in a very, very unhappy marriage for a long time because I had my first child at age 23. And I got really, really, really sick and had a very scary experience with the man I was with at that time, and ended up leaving him. And from that point forward, it was like something that had been, it's like from the time I was 19 until I was 34, there was this part of me that I was cultivating that I really kept to myself. I didn't, I would really, it's this spiritual part of me, this part of me that had these strange gifts, and just, like experiencing a part of life that nobody talks about. It's kind of like this undercurrent. It's underneath everything else that's happening. And that was my experience, but I didn't talk much about it. But I had been working with it and cultivating these abilities and having greater understanding, and just kind of been doing it in quiet. Abilities to work with energy, abilities, to assist in healing and that kind of thing. When I had this severe illness and then ended up leaving him, it was like that part of me that had been quietly cultivating came to the forefront. And the part of me that I had pretty much always identified with during my life, the part of me, the me that was known as an artist, and kind of the wild child kind of thing, just kind of got real less in the background. Hard to explain, but I really felt like the part that I had been cultivating in quiet came to the forefront after that illness when I was 34. And from that point forward, the energy that I had been communicating with all these years since I was 19 started to move into my body to have intense conversations with people. If something was brought up that was just intense topics where perhaps there's confusion, or it could be something personal for someone or whatever, but this energy would move into me and speak really profound wisdom. And so I started seeing clients, and teaching classes and just speaking to larger groups of people and allowing them to ask questions and that kind of thing. And that, and then work with people, healing all types of things, everything from physical ailments to emotional and mental, dysfunctions and spiritual dysfunction as well. And to this day, I'm 46 now, and that's still what I'm doing. So I think that pretty much brings it up to date.
Awesome. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing that with us. And wow, that's man, I have so many questions.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so I know this was a while ago, the NDE, but so when it first happened, I remember you said you don't remember like passing out. So you kind of just like awoken in this spiritual state in this other dimension, and you was having this communication with the being.
Yeah. So here's the order of events that I remember. I was overdose. I was in the tub right when my overdose started. My friend got me in the tub, and so I was sitting in the tub, and I kept feeling my soul being pulled out through the back of my head, right here at the nape of my neck. And so she left. I was still in the tub. All my friends left, so I was in this hotel room by myself in the tub, ODing, and I kept pulling my soul back into my body. It was like I had some control of it. I could, with my intention and my mental and uh, I don't know, some type of power. It's kind of hard to even, I don't know what you would call it because I had not experienced that I even had that until this was happening. But I kept pulling my soul back into my body. And I knew if it left completely, if it went all the way out, that was it. My body wasn't going to function anymore. So I had this really profound awareness that whatever this thing is that we call a soul is what's actually animating the body. And if it's out, then the body's not animated anymore. So I had this amazing awareness about that in this moment. And that's where I started having this. That's right after that. I remember my legs going numb, like my whole body started going numb too. And that's when I started this conversation. And at that point, I don't remember. I don't remember getting out of the tub, but I did because when I woke up, I wasn't in the tub. I don't remember passing out. I don't. So it's kind of a mystery, because it this entire conversation was happening elsewhere. And the last things I remember about my body, I was in the tub. But when I woke up, I was not in the tub. So at some point, I got out of the tub and passed out on the bed. I I don't know.
Yeah, okay, no worries. So in that spiritual state, do you recall any of the like visuals of how it looked when you were in that state talking to the being? Maybe it was pure light or
I do remember it was actually more dark than anything else. There wasn't a ton of light everywhere, but I had this interesting realization. So if anyone knows who Dr. David Martin is, he teaches all kinds of things, but he teaches about how we we see the non-reflected essence of things, right? So if we're seeing the color, purple, we're actually seeing everything except the color purple. And that's kind of the nature of this reality. So in this in between space, I saw a it was the tsunami was more dark than it was bright. But if you put it in that context where we're seeing the non-reflected essence, perhaps what I was seeing was pure light that we're not used to being able to interpret, because there's all kinds of light that we can't see.
Got you. Um, so, excuse me. So the being that you were talking to in that state is still the being that you communicate with now, or was that a
Yeah,
different being?
yeah, but
Awesome.
I wouldn't call it one being. It was, and to this day, when Geschichte is speaking through me, the always the pronoun we is being used, because Geschichte says that they are light and there is no separation in that existence. So there's no I in the way that we have I. So it's not one being, it's like who knows how many beings. It's consciousness of some kind.
Yes, yes, exactly. I literally just had this conversation earlier with someone because I was actually I was getting interviewed actually this time, which is that was it's different because I'm usually doing the interviewing for someone, but I was talking about how I don't publicly or offer any services of channeling, but I do channel for myself. And the being that I connect with, they call themselves "This one has no name." That's just what they go by, and they're very adamant about how they have no name and how names are constructs that we use to communicate identity in this dimension. But they, they was just like think of us as universal mind, just universal mind, and that's much more accurate towards the energy that you're connecting with. So I'm very familiar with that, and it's I guess, lovely to talk to someone else who connects with beings in that way. Because a lot of people, they're talking to the Pleiadians or Arcturians or Archangel Michael or just different beings, and that's cool. But that's just not what I guess I'm doing over here, and I guess that's what you're doing as well, because there's a lot of wheeze and stuff. So that's pretty cool. So, do you think that this is kind of like your life's mission in a way? I don't know if you believe in that or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah, I mean, I do, and it's kind of funny because it's it's not necessarily what I would have picked. I really love art and music, and I but this is I really don't advertise myself, and I still have people just contacting me wanting to have sessions. And when I launch a class, I have people that want to take the class, and then I end up having people that want to study with me for years. And so I have right now two ongoing classes, one very long term where the students have been studying with me slash Geschichte for years, and we it's funny from my perspective because I am involved in the teaching and I'm involved in the learning. So every time Geschichte is speaking through me to teach, I'm one of the students I'm learning. And it's incredible that every single week we all get taught, and it's new every week, and it gets deeper and more magical and more interesting week after week after week, year after year after year. And I couldn't have written this for myself. I couldn't have thought of this for myself. I love it. I really love it. I love learning about the magic and the structure of this world and the other worlds, and the structure of us and what we're capable of and how we start to tap into that. And I love learning about purification, how we do that, and how we purify this world. And I love helping people solve problems for themselves and gain new perspectives. And I love being a part of teaching people how to cultivate their own gifts. And I love the community that occurs through learning these kinds of things together, and the connection that occurs from being that vulnerable, because in these classes we're all extremely vulnerable, because it's that same energy I met in my near-death experience, and it's like everything inside of you is just on display. And so you're all there together with this, just your insides on a shelf for everyone to look at, but you're all learning and growing and transforming at the same time. And so these students have become my family, my best friends, and it's I couldn't have written it. It's beautiful.
Wow, that is amazing. Wow, it very much feels like that when you're doing channeling, that you're allowing that energy to come through you, but you're also learning in the same at the same time. You're like, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you think that you might have taken on this role to, you know, disseminate this information and be this conduit for this information and knowledge?
I I think it started, with desperation to live. In my near death experience, remember I said that I said, whatever is asked of me, I will do. And that was taken to heart. So, did did I make this decision before, you know, showing up here in this life? Of course, Geschichte says yes. But when you're in the life, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's happening to you. So, you know, there's that. But what was your question again? I forgot.
No worries. I feel like that was pretty good as an answer in itself.
Okay.
Um, so do you feel that Geschichte is a aspect of self or a different aspect of self, or is that different?
Well, I think it's a good question. The what I've what I've learned from what I've been able to feel, because as you know, when you're in that place, it's like you're not just hearing what's occurring, you're feeling, you're receiving the information that's coming through. So what I comprehend is that we are all in our natural state part of this oneness, that Geschichte would call we, the absolute light, the absolute connection. Geschichte calls it field one. So Geschichte explains the human experience in 8 fields, and in field one is the field of connection, the field of absolute transparency, oneness. All memory of all existence lives there. There's no separation of any of it in field one, and so that is the field from which Geschichte speaks. That's the the perspective with which Geschichte speaks. And then there's all these fields in between, and then there's field 8, which is the physical field. So that's us in our physical form. And field 1 all the way to field 8 is a part of us. So it's a part of being human, are these 8 fields. But in field 1, there's absolute oneness, and in field 8, there's separation. And we experience everything as separate. We experience, even these seeming dimensional shifts as separate, and each other as separate, and the birds, the trees, all of it as separate. But in fact, It's simply the oneness that's manifesting into a physical experience to know itself through the opposite of what it is. So to know itself through separation, because in the oneness state, you can't even comprehend it. So yes, in that way.
Yes, I love it. So, what has been some of the main things that you've, like, I know you've, before the NDE, you've had your own struggles essentially with just essentially just being human. You know, we all have these commonalities, but I guess the question I'm asking is, from your experience, what has been the commonalities that you observe within people that kind of lead them down those roads of, like, you know, negative lifestyles, of, you know, addiction or anything like that? What has been some of the recurring things that you've witnessed, I guess, maybe in people that you've worked with, or maybe just in general?
Well, number one of the things that I notice is that we do have a tendency to focus on the trauma. We focus on it and we play it on replay over and over and over again. So I think that's part of it. And when there's a fine line, right, between being able to go, okay, these are the traumas, these are the things that negatively affected me. I'm going to feel everything that happened there. I'm going to gain the gifts, the wisdom, the knowledge from those experiences, and I'm going to move forward. Or there's, I don't know how to deal with those emotions. I don't know how to deal with, what's happened to me, or the way I perceive the world, or the way I perceive what my life has been. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm okay. And then I'm going to focus on all of it, and I'm just going to wallow in the emotional muck, right? And use it to explain and why I am dysfunctional, or why I am, I'm going to use that as an excuse for all different types of things, and how not to be accountable. Or you just deny that the whole thing happened. You deny that you're affected by it and pretend like it didn't exist. Almost every single one of those, other than I'm actually going to process the emotions of this, I'm going to explore this perspective and find a new perspective that actually works for me. I'm going to extract the gifts and the wisdom from this and move forward and use it to empower my life in different ways. Any of the other ones that I said besides that will lead to trying to escape your life in some way. And we all have different methods of escape, right? Drugs are just one of them. So addiction in general, addiction is a term that's used for the more negative things, the things that aren't good for us. And that's it's an escape mechanism. It's a coping mechanism for not actually genuinely dealing with pain in a productive manner. So I think in a nutshell, the inability to interact with our pain in a way that empowers us and inspires us and moves us forward in our lives with purpose. When we don't know how to do that, we make very bad decisions, all kinds of bad decisions. I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And what's within that entire reality of not being able to deal with pain is self-loathing, disassociation, disconnection, lack of self-worth, lack of self-esteem, Inability to really be able to handle responsibility in a mature way, um, unwillingness to be responsible. Responsibility, if you don't have responsibility, you can't generate self-esteem. If you can't generate self-esteem, then you're not going to have any self-confidence. You're not going to feel good about yourself. If you don't feel good about yourself, you're not even going to remotely treat yourself with respect or kindness or love. It's not even going to be within your framework to be able to do that. So the behaviors that come from that are going to be self-destructive. So it's really an ongoing cultivation of self-respect and self-love that's true and deep and intelligent, not just like, I'm going to go get a manicure today because I love myself, but like, no, I'm going to engage in that which genuinely nurtures every aspect of me, and part of that is correcting me when I'm off in order to be proud of myself. Because if I'm proud of myself, then I'm even inspired by myself. And if I'm proud of myself, then I'm making good decisions for myself. And if I'm proud of myself, then I feel that I deserve good things in life, and I will work toward receiving good things in life, creating good things for myself in life. So it's kind of like you have to really get the momentum going in a positive direction, a self-respecting, a self-loving momentum, that kind of direction. If you're not, then you're probably in the other one to some degree. The question is, how deep into that gutter are you? And then once you're in the gutter and you're making the bad decisions, and with every decision, your self-esteem gets a little worse and your self-confidence gets a little worse. And you just start thinking, oh, God, I'm a piece of crap. I mean, nobody loves me. And well, just like deeper and deeper into the hole. And the deeper into the hole you get, the easier it is to abuse yourself. So long answer, but it's kind of an ongoing thought process and choice process.
No, thank you. That was a great answer. Before the NDE, and you might have mentioned this in the beginning, and maybe I just forgot, but were you, did you have any like particular beliefs or religious preferences or anything before that? Or were you kind of the same before and after?
Well, I was raised Christian, so I don't think we ever fully like break out of whatever we're raised with. So even to this day, I love Jesus, and I still talk to Jesus. But would Christians call me a Christian? No, probably not. And do I think the way most Christians think? Definitely not. Are my experiences way, way outside of the Christian box? So far outside of it. But I like to think that in my conversations with Jesus, it seems to me that his life was somewhat similar to mine. He is not portrayed that way a lot of the time. It's just like, oh, here he was. His life, he was magical and he just did all this stuff, and nobody really goes into the, depths of what that means. But here's a guy who was teaching about the true structure of this world and teaching about what's important to cultivate and correcting people and holding people accountable for lying and being, slimy. And he was standing up for women and really going against the grain of all kinds of stuff. And at the same time, healing people. And, one of the things I've experienced a lot of at this point is healing people and what that is like, what that does to your body when you're working with someone who has, cancer and has been going through chemotherapy, or, it's because it's true that we're not actually separate. When we really work to help someone heal, any kind of dysfunction, whether it be physical or emotional or mental, we can't help but feel what they're going through, and some of it gets transferred, because when we're offering energy to heal, they're offering energy to us to be absorbed to help in the healing process. So we're feeling the dysfunction of someone else too. So I think about what kind of discomfort did he experience? What was it like for him healing some of the stuff that he worked with in that day? And then what other stuff did he teach and heal that we've never gotten to hear about or learn about? So all that to be said, I was raised Christian, and I've spent a lot of time communicating with Jesus and thinking about Jesus, and it's still the foundation of what I am, because that's what I was raised. But I'm not traditional, and at this point, I don't even really like the labels of all of it, because I don't think that it's productive. It doesn't matter. Everything I've learned from Geschichte, the constructs that we've created to try to explain God aren't necessary. They're just not necessary. We don't have to have them in order to fulfill our potential as, God's children. There's very basic things that we can focus on and cultivate, and we can name it whatever we want, we can call it whatever we want, but ultimately the entire process is a purification process, and either we're on that train or we're not.
Yes, that was great. That was well said. Um, and I resonate a lot with that. And I'm just listening to you, and I'm just thinking about all the parallels between the things that you said, the things that you're saying now, and the things I said like 3 hours ago. Because it's exactly everything that you were saying about connecting with Jesus and everything, and not fitting within the traditional Christian framework. I was literally saying all those things because I have the piece on my neck, and this is what my mom gave me. So a lot of times people think that I'm Christian, and I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily not Christian, but I wouldn't say that I am Christian, because I feel like a lot of Christians read the Bible, they go to church and do all the Christian stuff, and I don't do any of those things. I meditate and I channel and I do all the other stuff. So it's like I have a deep connection and love for Jesus as well. But I just feel like it's not in the same way that the traditional Christians do. Like I knew that I had a connection to Jesus once I had opened up a deeper spiritual connection within myself, and then I started to have like a flood of these just different memories from different past lives, and one of them was with Jesus, and I was just like remembering having such a deep love for the things that this person did, and wanting to be as loving and caring and as giving as this person. So I definitely share that same love and admiration and things, but I just I don't really fall within any traditional religion, to be honest. And I studied a lot of them, and I study a lot of them, but it's just once you say that you're a certain thing, it's just like, you kind of, you probably should abide by those things. If you say that you're Christian, then you probably should read the Bible and go to church. If you're a Buddhist, you probably should meditate and stuff like that. But it's just like we got to follow those parameters once we say that we're this or we're that. So, yeah, I get you. It makes sense. What are the purification processes that we can conduct with inside of ourselves to, I guess, get to those different aspects of ourselves that maybe our unhealed trauma and things that are holding us back from. Because I remember you said purification a few times, and I'm assuming that's part of some of the things that you teach and stuff. So, yeah, I just wanted to learn more about the purification process.
Well, definitely I've found to be the purification process very intense and interesting and ongoing. But ultimately, it is to, I would say, what I've noticed with humanity is that the purest expression of us is not manipulative. And if you just look at the simplest dysfunctional essence of humanity, it's manipulation. It's the one thing that we will address in every single conversation, one-on-one client, every single class, is the stories that we tell ourselves to behave, speak in ways where we try to get something to go our way. And we're so entrenched in a manipulative world. It's so normal. And it's called love so much of the time, or it's called success, or it's called accomplishment, or whatever. But it's the ability to be able to tell when I say something, when I offer something, when I do something, am I acting purely out of my precious essence? Am I making an offering simply to make an offering? Or am I wanting something back? It's a really interesting thing, but even sometimes hugs can be manipulative. Because when someone hugs someone else, they want something back. They're not actually hugging to offer just the love, the affection, the nurturing to whoever they're hugging. They're wanting something for themselves with the gesture. And it's really amazing how many conversations that we have with people where they can't see what they're doing to be manipulative. Whether it's like, we do it all the time. We will not say certain things that are true for us because we don't want someone to think a certain way about us, right? That's manipulation. We will not tell people something about ourselves. We'll keep it hidden because maybe our parents wouldn't give us money if they knew that we were gay. Or it's like it's on and on and on. Or maybe we, take our child to go get a toy and out to eat so that our child will like us and want to favor us over the other parent, let's say, or it's on and on. Like, there's so many things that if we do not really pay attention to ourselves and really purify that honesty within us, that ability to be truly transparent, no matter the repercussions, if we don't do that, and at the same time figure out how to be gentle while we do it, right? Because so many of us will say a little lie just to keep the peace, or to make sure that something is okay, but we don't mean it. It's not real. It's not accurate. And so we're putting off a conflicting energy, and we're cursing each other with that. One of the things that I've definitely learned from my telepathic communication with Geschichte is the beauty and the power of true transparency. So there's when something's communicated to me, it's just communicated. Whether I like it or not, it doesn't matter. It's communicated, and it's done so in the gentlest way, but with nothing attached to it of, I'm trying to manipulate your perception in some way. And human beings are extraordinarily good at manipulating each other's perception instead of just being real. So I would say that's the foundation of the purification process, is just an ongoing ability to correct oneself, to be able to admit to oneself, in this area, I'm kind of a scoundrel. I need to work on being real here. I need to really think about, when I give, am I truly giving just because I want to give? Or am I giving because I want something back? And do I tell myself a story about being a great person because of my giving, even though I'm giving because what I want back is the recognition that I'm giving? So do I do my best to be honest and gentle at the same time? Do I, it's like the more you get into this purification process, the more you go deeper into what true love is. And true, the purification process is to actually emit this essence of true love that we really are. But we've got it all covered up with all these things, and then we've got all of these ideas about what love is and what we owe to each other in the case of it and all this stuff. But it's you have to attune yourself to this process where, your goal is really to be the most authentic self. Like your everything about you could be on a screen. Everything about you could be seen by everyone else, and all of the pieces that are off and dark or whatever, you just go, yeah, I need to work with that one. Yeah, I need to work with that one. And then the insecurities get less and less and less, and the triggers get less and less, because when it pokes something that's true, that's real, instead of reacting, it's I can work with that. I can perfect that energy about myself and make myself more vibrant and more of the light that I really am. And I can challenge myself to think about love in the deepest possible way, where I'm honoring what's true, what's real. Like if we don't want someone around us, how often have any of us acted like we did? And what did that do to that person? Could they feel that we were saying that we wanted them around, but they could feel that we didn't? So not only did we not want them around, but we then lied to them about that fact. And then if they were to approach it, like, I don't feel like you want me around, what do we say? You know what? You're right. And I feel really bad that I don't want you around, but that's actually how I feel right now. And I'm sorry, I don't want to hurt you. Or would we be like, oh, how dare you say that? And go into complete denial about it and not be able to admit to ourselves the way we really felt and have enough respect for the other person to not put them in a position where they're feeling the energy of not being liked, but we're saying something different. It's called gaslighting. But so it's like this really intricate process of self-examination and self-correction to be the purest expression of love possible, to really, really, really deeply understand the energy of love which is absolutely aligned with the energy of respect. And it's hardly ever talked about that way.
Yes, thank you so much for explaining it that way. I think about that all the time, quite honestly, of how can I be more giving or less trying to get something out of it, or something like that, or just wanting to be a person who's just loving and giving and not expecting. And I've done a decent job of that, but I mean, I'm sure, all humans can have their moments where they kind of feel a bit self-serving, and maybe one action here, or something happened last week where you're like, it could have been nicer, or anything like that. So that I'm glad that that's talked about, because that's something that I reflect on very much often. But we've reached the top of the hour, so I'd like to ask my last two questions that I ask all of my guests. And the first one is, what does love mean to you?
Well, love is a really deep word for me. To me, love is the true creative force of life. It's the energy of life itself. I feel that we can get in touch with love by respect, truly diving into what is respect, what does it mean to respect me, what does it mean to respect others, and also honesty. What is honest, and how can I be more honest with myself, and how can I be more honest with others, and can I sprinkle gentleness in there with that? How can I combine honesty and gentleness together so that the whatever I offer others is true, whether they like it or not, whether they interpret it as nice or not, it's true, and it's done so in the gentlest manner. And then I think that there are other, elements, other energies that we can attune to better understand love, like the energy of nurturing, the energy of compassion, which are tricky because in today's world, our compassion is weaponized. And that's one of the reasons why our society is so turned upside down on its head. And I could talk for a long time about that. But, in general, compassion it's still aligned with honesty. You can have compassion, but not lie. And you can have compassion, but not pity. Pity doesn't believe in the capability of someone. Compassion does. So they're very different energies, and people confuse them. And then overall the energy of connection, the the feeling of connection, truly being able to connect, is to me the energy of love. Connection is that's what spirituality actually is. It's really just connection. And we can utilize it with each other, and we can utilize it with the energy of life itself, and within ourselves, the different aspects of ourselves. But the energy of connection really leads us into a better understanding of love, because when we're connected, we truly comprehend and understand that what I do to me, I do to you, and what I do to you, I do to me.
Yes, exactly. And the last question is, what does the sun represent to you? The sun in the sky.
Hmm. The sun represents to me the the sun. The force of the sun is a non-exhaustive giving essence, and it's impartial, right? So the sun isn't going, I'll shine on you, but not you. No, you didn't pass the test today, you did. It's constant, It's impartial. It contributes to the generative aspect of life. It's warm, and it can teach us all about what it means to give just because, to give of the essence of giving. That's, to me, that's what the sun does forever.
I don't think anyone has ever said that before, and I absolutely love that non-exhaustive giving energy. Like that's amazing. That's because that's very much what it does. It's been there for me. It's been there for my parents, their great grandparents. It's seen so many civilizations, and it still continues to be in the sky giving. So, yes, thank you so much for your time, Angel. I've learned a lot. Where can people reach out to you if they want to connect with you and learn more?
They can reach out to me through my website, angel-geschichte.com, or my email, which is Angel-Geschichte, no hyphen, just Angel-Geschichte at ProtonMail. Like if you want a session or something, you can just email me there. So those are two good ways.
Awesome. If you want to connect with her, I will be sure to put the her information in the description box below. Thank you all for listening. And yeah, praise the sun. I'll see y'all next time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.